What's up guys, Bionic here and welcome to another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we are talking about the arena, more precisely my 5 top tips as a 100% free-to-play player for you guys to improve your arena performance. Because let's face it, this is the hardest or longest grind in the game, assuming you don't buy a ton of tokens to try and power through this. I've been going at it 100% free-to-play for the last 14 months. This is where I'm at. I'm sometimes in Platinum. I don't necessarily finish there because of things I've explained before, like the fact that you kind of need to be up at 3 a.m. and really kind of try to win the last battles in the last hour. Not always easy to do, especially not for me, but instead these 5 tips are going to help you guys better understand how the arena works, or what is crucial for you guys to understand to have a better performance. So what I'll do is I'll talk about these 5 points briefly because there is a lot of things to cover, okay? And unfortunately, it would take way too much time to go in depth for each of them. Instead, we'll highlight what's important about each, and then you guys will have a better understanding, and then I'll follow up probably with additional videos on each of them, okay? So let's jump right in because like I said, there is a lot of things to cover. So let's look at my current team on the defense side and bring up the first point. Speed and order. I don't think this has changed since almost day one in the game. I still believe that probably 90% of teams function this way. It's always about trying to be the fastest so you have the first move advantage, and then having the right order of your champions so that the right buffs and debuffs line up, okay? And let's take, for example, Arbiter. We have a speed aura, we have a turn meter increase. It is then followed by my Torment, which is a CC champion. And then we have our Arvis Jack, another CC champion. And then I've got my Nuker. Now this could very well be like a Ghostborn, Zargala, or a Stag Knight to provide an extra debuff like decreased defense to increase the damage of my Nuker. But guys, this build is basically the same thing as my build like in May last year, almost a year ago, right? It didn't matter how strong your team was. This guy has a player power of 95. I had one, 95,000, sorry. I had one of 68,000. But look, the right order again here was respected. I had my Spirit Host going first, sorry. I had my War Maiden going second with the decreased defense. And then I had increased attack, of course, from Spirit Host. Then I had 2 nukers. No CC, just straight up nuking power. And then all these legendaries, it really didn't matter because this guy was not respecting this crucial rule, okay? Let's take another example. Because I found it very easy in the beginning to get away with this type of build because a lot of players were just playing the strong champions like these legendaries, and it didn't really do much for them, unfortunately. It didn't matter how strong they were. If I had the first move advantage, enough speed basically, I was almost guaranteed to win. Let's take another more recent example, and no, don't go saying that I can beat Hell Hades. This is his B team, if not a C team. He was just putting this team in order to lower himself because I talked to him about it after. I'm like, this can't be right. There's no way I'm beating him. But again, here we're doing the same thing. Okay, this is very recent, but I'm going first, and then I'm using a different kind of nuker, which is Seer, but I'm basically able to beat him again, even if he has more team power, all right? So that's my number 1 tip for you guys. Speed and order is always going to be extremely important. All right, and now let's talk about the second point because I just briefly covered it while talking about the first. It is basically the buffs and debuffs, all right? And let's take our team once again. Our Arbiter is going to give us our 50% increase attack, and then I'm going to rely that that is enough for me to nuke with my Nuker. As for debuffs though, I'm not using the decreased defense because I would rather have more CC. This is just the way I've built my team, and I'll explain why a little bit later on the following point. But basically, I have 2 CCs, so 2 ways of debuffing. This guy also has a stun set, so there's a third way. This guy has decreased speed as well as turn meter decrease, so lots and lots and lots of CC. And then I've got my Nuker. All right, let's go back to one of the older builds. Same thing is happening here. Increase attack, decrease defense, and then that's it. That's all I'm using, all I'm relying on to beat my opponent. And I had made a chart some time ago as to what might be more important for each aspect of the game. Now that I'm in Platinum Arena, I think buffs and debuffs are always going to be very important, but the importance has changed compared to the rest of the game. I really feel like the Platinum Arena is also about controlling the enemy team, or crowd control CC, right? So you can see that I put the CC kind of first, but the decreased defense and the increase attack, sorry, it's probably not even on there, but let's just grab it and say that it's over here and it would be down here, okay? Following this, I just didn't have enough room. Is still very, very important to increase your damage, especially if you're doing a nuke type of build, right? So that is the second crucial thing you need to understand, is that your power will be amplified greatly if you have the right speed, the right order, but also the right buffs and debuffs being applied before you try and do your damage, okay? So definitely use that knowledge to your advantage. Once again, this is what I'm using here. And once again, if I would replace my Harvest Jack with somebody that provides a decreased defense, my Foley will hit that much harder, like you basically saw in the battle at the beginning of the video. All right, and now the third point is going to be auras and passives. This is similar to buffs and debuffs, but at the same time a little bit different, and I'll explain why very shortly. But let's take my old team as an example. Once again, I basically only have one speed aura, that's it, right? And the rest of my champions here do not have any auras that are in effect, right? Because they're not in the lead, and then they don't really have any passives, okay? But it's still very, very important. Let's take our recent team instead. With our Arbiter, 30% increased speed in the arena specifically, right? I mean, Arbiter is basically everywhere. She's the top champion for this. Maybe Duchess, Lysandra is also very good, but still, if you're going for a speed nuke type of build, most of the time, sorry, it is going to be Arbiter in your lead. She's so good, she's accessible, she is extremely good, so I mean, of course you're going to use her. And as for the passives though, we do not have one on Arbiter, but let's take our Torment for example and why he is so good. Torment is a great CC champion mainly because of his A3, which goes first. Once max, it's an 80% chance to provoke. If you put a stun set on him, there's a good chance that either one is going to hit and that you will control the enemy team. Even better, he's void, so you do not have the risk of having the affinity disadvantage, right? Because if you get a weak hit, you do not apply the debuffs. That is very important to understand. But he's also got this fantastic passive that protects you in case somebody is faster than you, right? So this is another form of CC, but working off of a passive, which means it's constantly working whether you are stunned, whether you are CC'd, the passive is going to keep working. Same thing with our Harvest Jack, and that's the reason why I also have a Harvest Jack, is that I'm really going hard on the CC on my defense team, right? Offense team is a little bit different, but same thing. Jack is another form of CC. Mine is not booked, but this could be a 100% chance to land a True Fear, decrease speed, and turn meter decrease. This is crazy. And also counting on this passive, right? Which is the fact that if I do get hit before I get to put my hits, I'm going to eat away at their buffs, okay? So effectively, reducing their effectiveness so that my nuker can hopefully hit without them having like an increased defense or something of the sort. So again, you need to be mindful of these, and I think that the passives are getting stronger and stronger and stronger in the game. They used to not be that much important, but now they are. Let's take Sifi for example. Basically has a chance to remove debuffs like the freeze and fear off of your champions at the start of every turn, as well as heal, as well as completely remove all the debuffs from Rotos, which is why she is so strong right now. Also being a void champion makes her an absolutely insane champion to have for the arena. Alright, now let's move on to the fourth point, which I believe is probably going to take the longest time for you guys, and it is about knowledge. You need to understand, and I have a saved fight or two here for you guys to explain this one instead, but you need to understand what every champion does. You need to understand what it means if they're faster, you need to understand what it means if they have an immunity set, if they have more accuracy than you, if they have more resist than you. So I saved up a run or two because I think it provides a very good example, and it's none other than, I think this might be Dark Micro, but I really liked his team because it protects against Torment, right? And he's got the Torment, and he's got the Arbiter to go first, so he's got two nukers, an excellent CC, and he's most likely faster than me. But I decided, why not give it a shot? Because what if I can counter his build by, let's say, going with a stronger affinity against the Foleys, right? As well as having crowd control myself, and my Harvest Jack with his passive, and my Torment with his passive. First run doesn't exactly go how I planned it. Of course, the Foleys get countered, or they counter my Torment because they trigger his passive. I'll cover that in a little bit. Once again, why the passives are so important. This is a great example. And then basically, this run is done, right? I get nuked by the second Foley and there is not much I can do. But then let's do it again where I readjust and I decide, okay, so I know my Torment is going to get countered by their Foleys, but what if I can limit the amount of damage I'm going to take by using my Rotos? It's going to prevent me from getting nuked by the Foleys, right? And it's going to give me a fighting chance if my Rotos gets to take a turn, okay? So it's a gamble once again. Like, I'm not sure this is going to work, but I'm going to give it a shot. Then again, just because I have the knowledge of what might happen and what might not happen. See right there, I get triggered, my Torment gets a turn because his Foley hit him really hard. And I still have full health and a little bit of shield. I get the one Foley down, then I'm going to try and take out the Arbiter because I do not want her to revive the other Foley. I notice his Foley already has a turn meter completely used, so and then I know that my Rotos is going to get another turn. Once again, it's about understanding what could potentially happen with the fight regardless of what the RNG is going to do for your champions, okay? So I get to win this round. Obviously, it's not always the case. This was a gamble. I don't typically take on these battles if I'm not 100% sure, okay? So that's probably one of the other main important things here is that your knowledge will decide if you try the fight or if you don't. Knowledge will also affect how you build your defense team because on your defense team, you have to understand all the possibilities when the guys are going to attack you. Okay, so it's hard to explain. I hope this little overview of what knowledge means will give you guys a better understanding as to what is possible. And don't expect to know everything off of day one or even within 6 months. Hey, I'm going on 14 months and I'm still learning every day. All right, and on to the final point. I already talked about it a little bit, and it is crowd control. Crowd control is extremely important basically everywhere in the game, right? We are using it to some degree in the dungeons, but the arena is that much more important, okay? Let's take some of the top players, for example. Looking at this team right away, what I can tell you, he's got many forms of CC. It's either in the form of a buff or a debuff, an aura or passive, but basically it's everything I just talked about. And here's why it's so important. This champion, if he has a 350 speed Arbiter, then that is probably the #1 way to control the enemy teams, that you're almost guaranteed to go first. He's got a passive off of Rotos that limits the damage, which means he cannot be one-shotted unless you have multiple hits. That's a form of CC. He has a Hegemon, which is guaranteed to go first and has a block cooldown skills. Another great form of CC. And he's got a nuker like a Trunda Guilt Mallet, who also has a stun built in. Another form of CC, okay? So as you progress through the arena, Platinum Arena, you will see that basically everybody is running a ton of CC in one form or another. And this is extremely hard to basically predict what's going to happen in a fight. And if you don't have the knowledge for it, like I just talked about, then you're going to have a hard time. So let's look at my team once again. I've got, like I said, speed and turn meter increase as a form of CC. I've got Torment as a provoke and stun set champion. Then I've got my Harvest Jack, who has a turn meter decrease, decreased speed, as well as a true fear. And then I've got a Foley, who, although it's just a nuker, also has a form of CC, which is basically his passive, which protects me against the other torments, right? Because if I get stunned, freeze, sleep, or provoke, I basically get a turn or almost a turn, right? So CC, guys, is going to be extremely important for you to understand, basically. And I'm betting that you do not know all the different forms of CC. Which will bring me to my final point, and the follow-up videos of this one is going to be a dedication to all the CC champions of the game. I will try to do a top 5 for each of them, but here's basically an overview of all the forms of CC and why they might be better or why they might not, basically. Stun is one of the hardest CCs in the game, and you take full damage. You cannot control your champion unless you have somebody to remove debuffs who isn't stunned. You're basically locked for that turn, and typically if you get stunned across the board, the fight's pretty much over. Freeze is almost the same, but you take 75% of the damage. Sleep is basically the same, but as soon as you get hit, it removes the sleep. We have True Fear, which has a 50% chance of letting you take a turn or not, and then that skill might go on cooldown. Provoke forces you to use the A1 on the champion that provoked you. Block cooldown skills prevents you basically from using your skills, kind of like the provoke, so you're stuck using the A1, but you get to decide which champion you're going to hit. Block buffs prevents you from getting all the, survivability buffs, on your end. Decreased speed means your turn meter is going to feel not as fast. Then we've got the ones that you probably don't know as much, but put skill on cooldown, increase skill cooldown, okay? We've got decreased turn meter, of course. We've also got remove buffs and decreased buff duration. I'll tell you something. All these slots are already filled out for each of the top 5 champions. They're just whited out for now. So, as I said, next couple of videos will cover some of these in detail and hopefully help you guys make a better decision as to how you can incorporate CC in your teams. Alright guys, so that's going to be it. In a nutshell, my top 5 tips for you guys to improve your arena performance. Let me quickly recap if you are still with me at this point, because I know it's a long video, but speed and order is always going to be very important, right? If you go first, you typically have a better chance at winning in most cases. Buffs and debuffs, if you want to maximize the damage of your nuker, you need the increased attack and decreased defense, right? In most cases. Auras and passive, do not sleep on them. They make a huge difference. We see it with Arbiter. We see it with the passive on Torment. We also have to be mindful of the knowledge, right? The 4th point was knowledge. You gotta understand what the enemy champions do, right? You have to basically know what you're walking into. That will give you a great advantage as well. And finally, we have the crowd control. If your enemy is completely locked out or CC'd, chances are you are going to win. So if you go first and you CC the enemy team, most likely you will win, right? And I guess I could make a 6th point. If all things considered are equal, if the same team is going against the same team, then it's going to be about gear, or more precisely the stats, right? So that is, of course, something you will always need to work on. We kind of see it right now with my Arbiter being at 314 speed. It's clearly not the fastest, and that's probably why I'm not in the top players in the game right now, or platinum. But guys, I hope that this gives you a better understanding of how you can improve your arena performance. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and do stay tuned for my next upcoming videos on the top 5 of the CC champions of each of the different CCs in the game. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys later.